Hi everybody, my name is Marc Lemarty, and again, I'm super excited to see you for this quick video where you're going to discover a new feature in Airflow 3.1, the Synchronous DAG execution. But why do you need that feature? Well, imagine the following use case where you ask a question to a system you built and that triggers the following data pipeline. So that data pipeline rephrases the question, then submits multiple versions of the question to a LLM, deduplicates the results, and finally returns the answer back to you. But what I want to emphasize here is the last task, return the answer. How can you get that answer back from the DAG? And so wait for that answer, because right now you ask the question, then you want to wait while the DAG runs, and finally receive the answer. So how do you wait for that answer? And some of you may say, well, we can already wait for a task to complete in Airflow. That's true, but I'm not talking about within the Airflow environment. I'm talking about you are on a website and then you send the question that triggers the pipeline and you want to wait for the answer from that website. And also, some of you may say, well, you can still wait for a task just by polling that task and checking at a given interval of time if the task is completed or not using the Airflow API. But that's not convenient. What I'm talking about is a much better solution. And that much better solution comes in Airflow 3.1 with this new API endpoint, the wait endpoint. To use it, it is pretty simple. You just need to pass the DAG ID of the DAG you are waiting for and the DAG run ID of the DAG run you are waiting for. And that's it. Just like that, you can wait for the result of a DAG. And the way it works is pretty simple. This endpoint blocks by polling internally until the specified DAG run reaches a terminal state, success, failed, or cancelled. This endpoint streams responses using the new line delimited JSON format, and each line in the response is a JSON object representing the state of the DAG run at that moment. But enough theory, let me show you that in practice. Okay, so let's say you have the following data pipeline, very simple, one task that sleeps for 10 seconds and then returns the hello world string. So what you want to do here is to wait for the completion of that DAG, 10 seconds, and then get the output of it, hello world. For that, you're going to use the new API endpoint. I've created a Python script just for simplicity, but obviously you will be able to request that API endpoint without creating a Python script. This is the Python script that I'm using. So I have the credentials to connect to the Airflow API locally. Then you can see I have the DAG ID, which is the unique identifier of the DAG that I'm going to wait for, sync DAG execution, as specified right here. And then I have the following function, get GWT token, to get the authentication token that I'm going to use to reach the Airflow API. Then I'm going to run the following function, trigger DAG run, because, well, I need to trigger my DAG in order to wait for it. So this is the first step. You must trigger your DAG. In that case, I'm using the following endpoint, DAG runs, and then I get the DAG run ID that I need in the new endpoint wait. Okay, so as you can see in that function, wait for DAG run completion, I have the following endpoint, wait, the new endpoint, that needs the DAG ID that I specified just right here, and the DAG run ID that I get from the trigger DAG run function. So now I have the DAG ID and the DAG run ID, I can just use the API endpoint wait in order to synchronously wait for my DAG to complete. So let me show you how it works. Pretty simple. In the terminal, I run the script, and now imagine that you are sending a question that triggers this pipeline. You wait for 10 seconds, and after 10 seconds, you will get the output of the DAG, as you can see right now. And you can see at the end the XCOM that the DAG returned with the value hello world as expected. At this point, you have successfully waited synchronously for your DAG to complete in order to get its output. Last but not least, you can see that the last status update is success. Remember that the API endpoint wait finishes as soon as your DAG returns the status success, failed, or cancelled. That's it about this feature. I'm sure you're gonna love it a lot. Keep in mind, this is a simple example, but in the real world, you could use that endpoint for asking, a question to a LLM and wait for that LLM to answer your question. And again, by using that endpoint, you can do that in Airflow. I see you for our next video. Take care.